years as a physical education teacher. I taught all the way from pre-K through high school level. That's pretty much me.
My name's Pat Oligschlaeger. I'm an assistant professor at Lincoln University. Been here for the last 8 years, and previously was a physical education teacher, coach, and athletic director in my previous lifetime.
Hi, I'm Nichole Thruston, and I am the newest member of our team here at Lincoln. I have been at Lincoln now for 2 years. Prior to this, I was also a physical education teacher, as well as I've done some strength and conditioning and some fitness things along the way. So I have a Master's of Science in Applied Physiology and Kinesiology, and addition to my my PE background, so I teach a lot of the kinesiology, the more science-based courses.
All right, so just to kind of let you know where we're at, our health, physical education, and wellness department is kind of a standalone department, but we're under the umbrella of the School of Education. We started out before any of us were here as a physical education degree, and then our wellness degree was kind of born out of that, and we'll get into that as we get going. We'll start out with a session overview.
So just to give you an idea of what we're going to go through today, these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. Learning outcomes. We're going to talk about the takeaways that we would like to give you from this session. We identified the problem initially as far as why we needed to develop and map program standards, because as far as the wellness degree tracks that we have, we did not have any. So we decided that we needed some. As far as the curriculum standards, developing curriculum standards, we decided each of our degree tracks, kinesiology, health promotions, and sports management, needed curriculum standards for those degree tracks. Curriculum mapping,
these are
in terms of developing substandards for each career track.
I think she's going to make
somebody else on.
I muted him. Go ahead.
Okay.
It was.
So we mapped out our curriculum in terms of developing substandards for each of these career tracks, and we got very specific and went through each of the specific classes for each of those degree tracks. Analysis of curriculum maps. We use existing data for improvement. And then why was it important for us to create standards and mapping for these degree tracks? We're going to discuss various benefits to completing the process for anybody that is interested in doing same. And then we'll go through our conclusions, where we are as a department right now in terms of this entire process. And then afterwards, we will have time for discussion as far as a question and answer period.
Okay, so today's learning outcomes, as a participant today, you should obtain the knowledge, skills, and abilities to explore the characteristics of effective curriculum standards and explain their role in improving teaching and learning standards. Illustrate a structured process for developing programmatic standards. Model a step-by-step process for mapping curriculum. Discuss the use of curriculum maps to identify alignment issues, improve instructional coherence, and enhance the learner outcomes. And finally, we're going to go through how to develop a plan for integrating mapping into your own curriculum, and how to review and redesign this for a redesign process.
So let's get into why we even decided to do this whole process. So our problem was, being that we started as a physical education degree program, before any of us were here about 20 years ago, the university started a wellness degree. And the wellness degree kind of encompassed everything. It had a high overlap, about 80% overlap with our physical education degree. And it really kind of was started for students that maybe didn't want to have a physical education as a career, that were just maybe in that degree track, or they got to kind of the area where they kind of were stopped out because they couldn't pass some of the assessments. They couldn't pass the assessment, the content assessment, or they couldn't maybe pass at that time. I'm sure it was like the C-base and some different things. So that was our historical understanding of where the wellness degree started. And then about 15 years ago, that degree broke off into kind of 3 different tracks. And our tracks were kinesiology, which is the sports science, health promotion, which has everything to do with promoting health, fitness, health education, and then our sports management, which is the business side of sports. And our degrees slowly at those times have added classes to delineate that degree further from the center of just a wellness degree. And we've been working on that as we've come in, where those degrees eventually will probably be standalone bachelor degrees. But right now they're still under a wellness degree with career tracks. So how did this become a problem? Well, it was a problem because the program being originally the spinoff of that bachelor's degree, all of our courses, when we aligned our courses and we built our curriculum, and we looked at our content, we aligned everything with the Missouri teacher standards, or with our NASB standards, which are our physical education content standards. And the students that wanted to be, say, an athletic trainer or a physical therapist or go into sports management, they were taking classes that they didn't even understand. When we started talking about Missouri teacher standards, they're like, why do I even care about this? And you started having a disconnect with a lot of our students. So over half of students in some of our courses, and me personally, I had some courses that had up to 85% of the students weren't even physical education majors, but our curriculum standards that our curriculum was based on was based for PE teachers. So that is a problem. So we looked at it and we really weren't giving the students what they needed to be successful in a career. So we decided as a group of our group that like really our program had outgrown the alignment with Missouri teacher standards. And we really needed to consider how we could go about doing something different to make our degree path more student-centered. And then we were looking at our university's priority. The priority was to make sure your programs were aligned with some type of curriculum standards. We were looking at different things with our assessment committee was talking about we needed to develop curricular maps for all of our degrees and then align assessments and do different things to make sure that all of our accrediting agencies, that was some of the feedback we were getting, that some of our degree paths weren't really aligned with really curriculum standards. So when we went to HLC, that was some of our feedback. So we wanted to make sure that we were meeting all of those different, benchmarks as well. But really our problem to us is we're always really trying to be student-centered as teachers, and our students weren't getting what they needed to get to be successful in the career field because our courses were built for teachers and not necessarily everybody in all of our courses were going to be teachers.
So as Dr. Kish mentioned, we do have 3 degree tracks: health promotions, kinesiology, and sports management that our majors can major in, that our students can major in, other than physical education in the wellness department. So for these degree tracks, we found that there's no state or wellness standards per se for them. Okay. Now, if you look at the graph on the right, the National Wellness Institute offers the 6 dimensions of wellness, but that hardly qualifies as content standards. So we had to glean information for these standards from different organizations that are listed on the current slide, as far as the National Athletic Trainers Association, the American Physical Therapy Association, which would align more closely with our kinesiology majors. We also looked at Shape America, which provides standards for those interested in coaching. We looked at the National Intercollegiate Athletic Administrators Association and COSMA, which is the Commission on Sports Management Accreditation for those students interested in sports management. and also the Center for Disease Control, which provides national health education standards, which would go towards our majors in health promotions.
Sorry, I was on mute. So once we looked into this and decided that we needed to develop some type of standards, we talked about how to go about doing that, what the best way was, and we decided that we didn't want it to just be something that we came up with. So what we did is we used our students a lot as far as having conversations with them, because we wanted to make sure what we were doing was meaningful to them and they understood why we were developing these standards. So the way we went about doing that is we did different assignments in class where they looked at the Missouri teaching standards, and we asked them questions such as, what do you want to do when you graduate from Lincoln? And we especially wanted to make sure we were aligning those standards, as Pat just pointed out on the last slide, to specifically what areas they wanted to go into. The focus groups we had, we used class time in which we were having these conversations with students where we were going through each standard. We were specifically discussing assignments they were already doing as part of their classwork and how that fit into the different standards. And I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit on the next slide. And wanted to make sure it was research-based, again, based on those last organizations on the previous slide. We wanted to be aligned with the areas they are potentially going into. So as a result of that, we did develop a set of non-professional standards that are similar to the Missouri teaching standards, but again, aligned with what our students plan to go into. And I will go through those on the next slide. So here are the 9 standards. The first one, content knowledge aligned with professional responsibilities. So basically what that looks at is, do students understand the language we use and how that is going to go into the jobs they're going into? Are they able to do research? Are they able to look at different perspectives in the curriculum and when they're doing certain assignments? The second one, understanding of individual development. We discussed this in a lot of our different classes, how everyone is different when you deal with them, whether that's in their age, their developmental level, cognitive level, psychosocial. It's a lot of things to think about when you're dealing with people as individuals, as students, as clients. So we want to make sure that our students understand that when they are developing lesson plans or working on specific projects. The third one, ability to strategically plan. Again, this is something that is reiterated a lot in all of our different classes, whether it's planning a lesson, planning a presentation, planning a project, time management. We just want to make sure when our students go out into their fields, whatever that might be, that they understand the importance of being able to plan. Use and development of critical thinking skills. Again, several classes, we talk about theories, we talk about ethics. We want to make sure that our students are able to think on their own. Development of a positive climate and culture. Can students use classroom management, not just classroom management, depending on what they're going into, but are they able to make everybody feel welcome? Does everybody feel like they belong? Are we using appropriate language when speaking to all? And leading into that, effective communication. Again, students need to be able to talk, obviously, clearly. They need to be able to communicate with people trying to get their ideas across. They need to be able to work with one another and just make sure that they're being clear in their communication. Assessment and data analysis. As we all know, this is very important to be able to assess and provide data when we're speaking on specific topics. Obviously, professionalism is important no matter what area you're going into. Are you carrying yourself in a professional manner? How do you dress? How do you speak to others? Professionalism comes across in many ways. And then last, just do you have the ability to work with other people, whether that's working as a team, working as a partner? Are you able to cooperate with people and show that in your assignments and in your future career? So these are some examples of program learning outcomes specifically for the health promotion track But we actually did this for each of the tracks, the kinesiology as well as the sports management, where we took each standard and spelled it out, what it looks like. And then on top of that, we detailed it even more so that when students are working in our classes, and for example, I'm in charge of the wellness internship and they have to work on a portfolio as part of their internship. So for their portfolio, they have to talk about each standard in their own words, what it means to them. And then they have to provide evidence of 2 assignments that they've done in their major classes and basically talk about how those assignments have show that they have met these different standards. And then after they discuss how the assignments have shown that, yes, I can meet this standard because I have done X, Y, Z, then they have to talk about how that specific standard is going to benefit them or how they're going to use it when they go into their intended careers. So these are just some examples of the first 3, so you can see what that looks like for this specific track.
In the process, when we built these out, we built the 9 standards with our students and kind of what they look like. And then we kind of wrote the kind of header here. And then we came back and split them all apart. And we did sports management separate from kinesiology, separate from health promotion to do these substandards because they're going to look different. You know, if we're talking about data analysis and the use of data, a coach is going to use that way different than a kinesiologist, than somebody in the health field, than somebody in sports management. So, you know, that might be budgeting, and, you know, long range planning is going to look different. So we wrote these under each one based on the things you're going to do within that career field. So we started in a 2-step process, writing just the standard, and these are somewhat aligned with the Missouri teacher standards. So most of you know those. So and then the substandards really get kind of down into the weeds and get into the career field to make sure we're preparing those students for the career. So the next part of the process after we developed our curriculum was we had to figure out where we were going to teach the different things. So we'll get into the curriculum mapping.
Okay, so when we're talking about curriculum mapping, what we're doing is we're taking our substandards that we're having from each class, and what we were doing is we were evaluating them based on 3 criteria: whether or not we were introducing the topic in itself, remediation. This is where they would be practicing. So at that point, they're really like refining their skills for each particular substandard, right? So we're working from, and I'm going to give you an example in a second of like one from my program and how that would apply, as well as M, which would be mastery, where we would be expecting them to be able to show proficiency within that standard and those particular benchmarks or indicators underneath it. So on the screen in front of you, you can see a map of the kinesiology program. And I specifically wanted to just take a look and apply to one of the standards on there. So I'm going to look at S7K2. So this is my assessment and data analysis standard that we have under the Lincoln Wellness. And S7K2 says apply various assessment strategies to evaluate participants and our programs, such as baseline evaluations, ongoing assessments, corrective feedback, summative assessments, and overall program evaluation. So through this standard, if you look down on your screen at S7K2, you can see that we have introductory programs happening within our PED 111, 200, and PEP 201 classes. And each one of these classes, they're going to be introduced to slightly different material and topics that are going to surround assessment. For example, in personal and community health, they're looking at like overall physical health, what types of physical assessments are going to happen, as well as health assessments, overall wellness. They look at sleep, different areas there, but they're being introduced to the topic. They're not performing the assessments or practicing those assessments. Same with 200. We do a lot more PE based material in there where they're going to be introduced to the topics that they're going to apply. And 201 is going to be that introductory to fitness. In that class, we introduce like the FIT model, what is anthropometric data, what is baseline assessments, but they're starting to understand that topic and be introduced. So we marked that as I, where if you follow it along to motor learning, that's where they're going to get a lot of remediation. So that's our R. We make sure that they're getting a lot of practice in there. In motor learning, students are learning to break down skills. They're learning how to, and I have them applying these. So they're out learning how to properly give directions, learning how to break down different motor skills, looking at how they can best motivate somebody. All those different types of assessments really go into practice. And if we followed that along through our program, you can't see it there, but particularly in when we're looking at kinesiology and we get to that mastery, they take an actual assessment class where I go through each assessment itself, and they should have mastery and the ability to do that. So to test things like maximal oxygen consumption and assessment, they get various strategies. They have to be able to apply that. Or kinesiology, where they're specifically looking at how each joint moves. They should be able to assess it, know whether or not it's correct or incorrect, and why. So they're getting the mastery of all of that throughout the kinesiology program. And that's kind of how we mapped it out. Additionally, so by the time we're at mastery, each one I can look at an assessment and I can link that right back up. So part of my kinesiology assessment showing that they have mastery of that is the ability, right? They're looking at different research. So they're going to write me a research paper. They're also going to break down and show me those assessment skills. So not only do we have mastery, but we can prove that they have mastery at that point through the use of assessment.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I changing documents. I did that to myself. All right, so I'm back. All right, so what we did was we actually sat around the table and we brought all our expertise. That took some collaboration to do. So we all teach different classes, and we had to kind of talk about where we introduced things, what introduction really meant, what remediation meant, what mastery meant, and then what we taught. And we worked together on these maps. And then once we got the maps together, it was important for us to analyze all of our curriculum maps. And we did this one at a time. So we wanted to really identify if we were using the same verbiage, but then we wanted to identify where gaps were. So we went down each column and we're like, all right, so where did we maybe not have much in our specific substandard one? And there's not very many marks here. We didn't introduce it much. We didn't remediate it much. We didn't get to mastery. Like, we looked through where the gaps were. We then also looked at where there are a bunch of redundancies. We did this over and over and over. Well, is it necessary to do it over and over and over to make sure that those skills are really met? Is that a skill that needs to be practiced? And then we identified opportunities. Where can we massage our curriculum between us to add some here, subtract some here, to make sure we're teaching all the things that our students need to teach? And we then changed up some of the content in our classes to ensure that our students got that well-rounded education. And we not only, we first did this in physical education too. So we did this in physical education based on, our content test to make sure that we were teaching all the things that needed to be taught to ensure that our students could pass the test, as well as the Missouri teaching standards. So we've done this for 4 different programs now, but we work together, and it takes some collaboration. And that doesn't necessarily always happen easily everywhere, but we work together real well. We sat around a table for several different days and worked on these things. And once we analyzed the curriculum, we then massaged it. We came back. We've all changed some of the content and some of the things we've done in our class to ensure that the students are getting what they need to get to be successful in the career field. So that's where we get back to, we all come with the student-centered mentality. So first of all, to do something like this, you all have to believe in the value. You have to like have that mission and vision and value and all those things, and you kind of have to believe in it. So what's the value of a project like this? Well, at the end, it provided a clear programmatic focus. Like, it gave us some goals. Like, we had goals to ensure that we were going to have some kind of programmatic standards. We were going to map out our curriculum. We were going to make sure that our students were getting what they needed to get. We were then going to, the next phase of this is going to be to align specific assessments along the way to our curriculum maps. It provided us a framework for career-based content to make sure that we were helping our students get what they needed to be successful in the career field, not just today, but in the future, and to give us an innovative, forward-looking kind of lens. It allowed us to work with our students, to talk to them, to see what their needs are, and then they could be more connected to us, and we could be more connected to them. That helped us improve the teaching and learning process, not just for us, but for our students. They felt more engaged. They felt more empowered because they were active in building this. It helped students understand professional expectations, because we weren't selling Missouri teaching standards to people that weren't going to be teachers. Now we're selling them specific career-based, no matter what career they're going to go into, professional standards where they can understand the language and go, yeah, that's what I want to be when I grow up. So it helped them really understand their professional expectations. And then it provided us an alignment with that assessment framework. Like Crystal said earlier, we have a internship-based class where they do a professional portfolio, and that assignment is they're going to look at their 9 standards, and they're going to have an artifact to prove that they can do each of these professional standards, and they're going to have 2 basically for each standard, and they're going to pick an assignment from class, and they're going to write how they meet this, and they're really going to show full understanding. So it gives our students a deeper set of knowledge and skills and abilities as they're ready to enter the workforce. So and that is our assessment framework. The assessment for our wellness program, the end assessment, is their career-based portfolio, their programmatic portfolio, and they have to pass that with a B or higher. And then it helps us meet those accreditation standards that are put on us by different associations. So it really helped us, we think, make better programs for our students, be more student-centered, to be better teachers ourselves, to help us continue to innovate our programs, and really to do things that are better for the whole educational process.
To wrap things up, for our wellness department at Lincoln University, developing professional standards was the first step towards improving our curriculum for the classes that we offer in kinesiology and health promotions and sports management. Developing career-focused substandards, as we talked about before, added context to these professional standards, providing more specificity for each of those classes. And then curriculum mapping, we decided, was the key aspect to the sequence of instruction when students take certain classes in their degree program. And then analyzing the existing data that we collect helps us look at ways to improve strategies for our classes.
Okay, so at this time, we'd love to just have a discussion with anybody, take some questions. If anyone has any,
Comments, ideas, throwing the ball to y'all.
So Greg's saying, did the teams define signature assignments / assessments for each of these levels? Yes, so we have signature assignments for introductory point, we have content that we have to cover, right? But when we're talking about remediation, I'm going to go back to the same thing in motor learning. By the end, so they are to complete I call it a coaching assignment, because some of them are like, I'm not going to be a PE teacher, right? But it's really important that they understand how to break down skills in our program for every single one of these careers. So as a part of that remedial assessment piece to meet that particular standard, they're going to complete a plan. They have to correctly write a task analysis, break down a task analysis, and they have to give proper feedback on that correction. That would work to meet other standards as well, but part of that standard. And I would use that as my signature assignment, showing that they are practicing, that they're getting there. Versus once we go into kinesiology, they are expected to write a pretty in-depth research paper, really showing the same skill, but in a lot more depth and with added research to that assignment. So we have signature assignments built in from remediation to mastery. When we're talking about introductory courses, it's more content-based. Really, every assignment's kind of playing a part in overall understanding for the most part. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I can add to that too. When we build our, almost every course has a signature assignment. When we get to our 300 and 400 level courses, we have one or two, and we do label them as even signature assignments. And we build our assessment pieces, our scoring guides or rubrics per se, to use the same language that the me started out with. I know they dropped the verbiage now, but we use developing, skilled, and exceeding. And we then attach, when we have our criteria, we label a criteria. Not necessarily every criteria is labeled one, but we'll label most of our criteria that are aligned with a specific standard to that standard. So we'll have a column, and then we've actually kept that data, and we haven't delineated this out, but that is a plan in the future to take all of our introductory data on specific standards, our remediation data on specific standards, and our mastery data on specific standards, and then compare that to see if people are moving along through the program. We're trying to figure out how to do that through our learning management system, but that is a goal of our assessment in the future, to be able to do that. But we have like labeled them, and we use the same kind of language and the same kind of rubrics for all of our signature assignments. We don't necessarily do it on all of our assignments, but on our signature assignments we do.
I have a question.
Yes.
About how long ago did you start this process? So like, what's the length of time that you've been working on this?
We started the concept about 5 years ago, discussing it. It took us about a year and a half or so to do the first go around of the standards, with talking through our students, doing assignments in class, doing focus groups. We actually developed a handbook. If you've seen the Missouri Teacher Standard Handbook, we developed a handbook similar to that. We piloted, when we have that for our students. Dr. Moseley runs our internship for our wellness students. She piloted some different versions before we got to kind of where we're at for our end artifact portfolio. So then we've then developed actually the substandards in the last year, and have realigned all of our programs within the last year. So this has kind of been about a 4.5. I mean, from the discuss, like from actually the work, probably about 4 years from the thought process of when we were going to start this, about 5 years out.
And how often do you think the four of you have to meet to collaborate? Do you include other people in the process, like any part-time professors?
We haven't had very good luck with part-time professors. They don't, our students don't like them, and they haven't kind of met our needs. So we haven't really gone that route. Us four tend to teach all of our classes. So our students just, they come in and they have needs and expectations, and the people we've been able to get haven't been able to meet those, to be honest with you. If I can put that as correct.
It's hard to find adjuncts in the Jeff City area. that are
Yeah,
qualified.
physical education is a really tricky thing because most physical educators, if they're retired from PE, are probably going to coach, and they could make a lot more coaching and or people available in the time. A lot of our students are athletes, so they can't do things at night, and we have to have a very limited online because we're such a hands-on degree. So it's kind of difficult for us to reach out and do too many adjuncts.
That's helpful. Thank you. Mhm.
But the other part of your question, we all work together. Our offices all intersect, and we talk regularly. How often do we meet on this? I don't know. We have some discussions several times a semester, probably once or twice a year. We sit down and really have a hardcore work group, where we work a big portion of the day. But we talk to each other every other day. So, I mean, we couldn't have covered everything. So somebody else.
Is there a question on the chat?
Oh, there might be another. Oh, okay.
So, said, do you have similar processes? I actually answered this question just because pretty easy. For PE, I told them like, yeah, we have them for all frameworks, but that PE, we use both the Missouri teaching standards and our wellness standards, but they all align in the same framework, and we mapped it the exact same way. So you would see the map on there with PE, like it says, it looks exactly the same, except for obviously they're looking at their particular outcomes for PE and saying this is introductory, this is remediation, this is mastery.
Yeah, we did basically two maps for physical education. We did the Missouri teacher standards, which are pretty much in alignment with the MEAS, although the MEAS then kind of massaged their substandards about 2 years ago. But then we actually got the frameworks for the practice 2 for the content area, that we completely mapped that, which was a much bigger animal because that's so content specific, and that's a monster. But we mapped out the content framework as well. What really probably got us going on this was about 6 or 7 years ago. Was that about the time frame, Crystal and Pat? We determined that our PE students weren't doing so well on the MOCA at the time, and we had all kind of just got here and got started, and we wanted to figure out what we could do to get better, and we mapped out the MOCA content. And after that, I think we had one person that had to take it more than once to pass it. So we really got in our mind that we could be student-centered by mapping our content and us doing better. So we were all believers at that point.
There's a question, how do we report assessment data? What programs do we use?
Right now, we can work with the group that runs our learning management system that does Canvas. And as long as we build our rubrics and we label them correctly in Canvas, they can pull all the data out of there. Otherwise, we would have to pull it out ourselves and put it in spreadsheets. But we've had some luck building our rubrics correctly and working with them to have them pull the data out when we just got AQUIP accreditation. So we were able to use our data from the learning management system from Canvas for our AQUIP accreditation process.
For the next question, what are you using for the student portfolios mentioned? Right now, students, when they do the internship, they are enrolled in a course, which is the internship. And so their stuff is actually on Canvas. And so basically we use the semester to look at the standards, discuss them, talk about different classes that align with the standards. And from there, they have to personalize it for themselves. So right now it's just housed on Canvas.
Yeah, Crystal built the portfolio is like a class on Canvas. It's a portfolio class, like it's a portion of her class. So she built all of the assignments as a portfolio. So we don't have to pay like Folio Tech or anybody else to do that. We just built it ourselves. Good questions.
So HLC visited, this is Aaron, last year. So we're going through a very similar process with the HLC criteria. They will be coming again in a couple of years. So I guess that was just a comment there. And then Greg wrote, have we looked at any of the Canvas portfolio components?
I
I mean,
have,
I think that'd be Crystal.
I haven't, I know I tried to before, and we don't, as an institution, subscribe to the higher level of Canvas. So I'm not sure we have all those tools, but that's something we can check into. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think our next step is we've mapped out everything, and our next step would be to like actually label and connect our different assessments. We've kind of done that within our syllabi, but we don't necessarily have that housed, and then to be able to pull the data. So that's probably the next step, to probably to check every box for HLC, but it's a step at a time. But that's a good comment. I think when we get there, we would probably meet everything that HLC or AQUIP or anybody would ask for. We didn't get dinged by anybody. We didn't get dinged by AQUIP. We actually got good reviews there. Well, I think we were set to 1:45. So, hey, thanks everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions or follow up, you can contact any of us at Lincoln. At the web is www.lincolnu.edu, and all of us, our emails are our last name, first initial at lincolnu.edu. I don't know if MACTE will collect these presentations and share them out, or if you would like a copy of this, just email us and let us know, and we'll happily share anything for you. We appreciate you all coming today, and thanks for the good questions, and thanks for being here. And hopefully we shared something with you that you might be able to take a nugget and use in your own program.